Hi, love bugs. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, I'm honored to have an incredibly inspiring guest with us, someone who has fearlessly challenged the status quo and dedicated her life to advocating for change. Joining me today is Alison Myrden, a former law enforcement officer turned powerhouse advocate for drug policy reform, medical cannabis, and patient rights. After being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and trigeminal neuralgia, which I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, I may not. Alison faced an immense personal challenges that led her to explore alternative treatments, eventually becoming one of the first people in Canada legally allowed to use cannabis for medical purposes. But her story does not stop there. As a speaker, activist, and a former representative for the Law Enforcement Action Partnership, Alison has made waves in the fight for compassionate drug policies. She's taken her message to global platforms, breaking down stigma, empowering others to take control of their health, and challenging outdated systems. Today, we're going to dive into her journey, how she transitioned from law enforcement to activism, the challenges she's faced as a woman in male-dominated spaces, and what it really means to stand up for what you believe in, even when it's not easy. So get ready for a really great conversation about resilience, empowerment, and redefining leadership. Hi, everyone. Life can get a little crazy, so let's talk about it. If you're ready to dive deeper, talk about what really matters, and feel a little more empowered, then you're in the right place. I'm your host, Carly Dockstader. I'm a life coach, baker, dog mom of two, and you're always there for you, gal pal. And I'm so excited to have you join me. So grab your fuzzy socks, put on your comfy pants, and let's have girls' night. Alison, thank you so much, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Carly. So happy to be here, sweetheart.
We're so happy to have you. I'm so inspired by your story, and I think it's actually just so interesting the transition that you've gone through and the different changes that you've made, because I feel like so many people just get stuck in one track, and you've definitely broken out of that. So to start the conversation, do you just want to tell us a little bit about yourself personally and a little bit about your journey?
Sure. Actually, I'm a retired law enforcement officer. But before that, growing up, I battled something called multiple sclerosis, which I'm still battling, and a really violent pain in my face and head, known as the worst pain known to medicine, Carly, called tic-tac-toe. But it's
Okay.
also called trigeminal neuralgia, for those who do know. And I also got diagnosed with cluster headache. So I have a
Okay.
number of different issues that I use, chronic pain issues that I use, opioids and things for relief for pain. So,
Right.
but yes, but I ended up starting in this journey years ago. I think I started in the 1990s when everybody was still young, if they're not
Okay.
even born yet. But anyway, and I literally, as a young person like you, Carly, I had a lot to say, and I wanted to stand my ground and have some place to say it. So my fight then was I had a violent pain and still do in my face and head 24 hours a day. And so I decided from smoking cannabis, I found out that smoking cannabis helped. And
Right.
here I am today because of that. So again,
Yeah.
it's taken on a long journey.
Yeah, I think that's great too. And I think it's awesome that you're somebody that actually stands up for that, because there's so many different medical uses for something like cannabis. For LSD comes to mind for me also, and psilocybin. There's this one documentary on Netflix. I cannot remember the name of it, but it talks all about LSD before all the propaganda hit about how they were using it for these different medical purposes, not just physical pain, but also for different mental disorders that people struggle with. So I think it's really great that you're an advocate for all of that.
Thank you. Can I just say to you, Carly, that I was
Yes.
given 32 pills a day,
Oh my
2,000
gosh.
milligrams of morphine a day for almost 18 years.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I was young when I was doing that. I was in my 20s and 30s, and I thought, this is not the life for me. So
Right.
I knew then that doctors had given up on me and said I wasn't going to be here past the age of 40. And I
Mhm.
thought, well, I better do something to change that because I
Yes.
definitely wasn't finished living yet.
Yeah, 40 is so young, man. Going off of what you just said, what was kind of the sparking moment for you when you went from the change of I don't want to live this life anymore, taking all these pills, to the life that you're living now?
I think it was one time, actually, my pivotal moment was one time I came home from work as a corrections officer and I went immediately into my closet in my bedroom and started to smoke a joint. And then I realized that I had just come from court that day with young people in my custody
Hmm.
who were being charged for doing the same thing that I was doing in the closet, except that they were actually being caught out in the open. And,
Right.
and so I think that was a pivotal moment when I realized again that this affected more than just me. It wasn't just about me. And that again, it was medicine more than
Mhm.
anything for me. It was medicine. And I wanted to teach the world that. My first lawyer didn't even believe, Professor Alan Young didn't even believe that it was cannabis was medicine. And I said, oh, yes, it is. You just watch.
Like, I'll show you.
And I did, boy. I did.
Yeah, well, here you are. How long have you been doing this work for again? The
Oh, over
advocacy work?
35 years.
Over
Over
35
35
years.
years, Carly. I'm 61.
Okay,
I'm
wow.
years young. Yep. And I've been doing it for 35 years,
Okay.
ever since I could speak up and had a voice. And literally, I was in corrections when I started to speak out. So I
Hmm.
was still working.
And I find it so interesting that you did kind of make such a drastic change because, at least in my mind, you're going from law enforcement and then you're going over to drug law reform with medical cannabis, which in some places still has a stigma around it. And I'm from Colorado, so it's a little bit more accepted here than other places, including psilocybin as well. But in addition to that pivotal moment that you just described to us, what kind of led to that drastic change from being in law enforcement to the drug advocacy work being your primary focus?
I think it was a number of things, Carly. I actually was approached by Jack Cole, the founding member of LEAP, when I was young too. In
Okay.
2004, I was actually at a protest on Parliament Hill in Ottawa, Ontario. And we had a big protest going with people from all across Canada who, like me, spoke out in drug law reform.
Hmm.
And Jack Cole heard my voice booming down the streets of Ottawa on the mic, on the loudspeakers, I guess, and ended up coming up to me and asked me to join LEAP that day. So
Okay.
Jack, as I said, taught me that what I was doing was more important to be known globally, so that
Right.
it wasn't again just a little Canadian issue,
Hmm.
which again I knew at the time. I'd been doing this work for decades. So ever since I was young, I'd been involved in drug law reform.
That's great. And can you tell us a little bit more about LEAP and what they do?
You bet. LEAP used to be Law Enforcement Against Prohibition when I was with them from 2004 to 2016. But
Okay.
when I left them, they changed to a new group called Law Enforcement Action Partnership. And
Okay.
what we did and LEAP, at the original LEAP, was we spoke out about all things to do with prohibition, anything we wanted to end prohibition, period. End prohibition of drugs, and prohibition of everything that was consensual. So now the new LEAP, I think, has taken a new mandate and they're a little different. But
Okay.
again, that was my intention when I went with LEAP and joined Jack Cole and Peter Christ and everybody else years ago.
Great. Well, that's really cool. And I feel like once you dive into this world, there's so much that you don't know until you actually start looking into it, right? So I think it's really cool that you've been so immersed in it for so long.
You bet, honey. I've heard, seen, and done it all, literally.
So how have your changing a little bit to your diagnoses? How have your experiences with multiple sclerosis and trigeminal neuralgia and your cluster headaches, how has that influenced your perspective on patient rights and their access to alternative treatments?
Well, first of all, cannabis, when I was young and was first using it, got me up out of a wheelchair and helped me to walk again.
Okay,
So I
wow.
knew then that as medicine, it was definitely something that I needed to investigate. So what I did was I continued to look into it and I realized the more I consume cannabis, the better I got.
Okay.
So I have something called primary progressive multiple sclerosis. And doctors told Gary and my family, my partner Gary Lynch and my family, my mom and dad, that they would be spoon feeding me in a nursing home by the time I was 40 years old if I was
Yeah.
still here. And
Yeah.
I remember hearing those words when I was young and thinking, wait a second, you don't know me at all.
Right.
So that's what made me fight was I started to realize what good medicine these things were and that I didn't need all the pills they were giving me.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, I was on 32 pills a day for plus everything for 18 years. They were giving me everything they could think of, Carly, just to
Hmm.
try and alleviate this pain. And
That's
now I am
crazy.
almost completely pain free every day because of psilocybin and cannabis.
That's amazing.
And of course, some Dilaudid, some morphine as well. But
Yeah, that's so amazing. And I think that's, I mean, I'm a big advocate for holistic health, right? And holistic medicine. And I think that's at least in my circle, I feel like that's caught on a little bit more. So people, yeah, people pursuing some of those more natural remedies to try to get to the root cause rather than just covering up the symptoms with more and more pills. Um, so I'm a really big advocate for that. So I think this is really interesting that you found such a drastic change when you started using the cannabis for your pain.
it was incredible, Carly. It was funny because I actually came home. I was telling you, I was in my closet smoking a joint
Mhm.
for relief because the pain in my face was so bad after work that day that I
Mhm.
went to my doctor the next morning because I had immediate relief. Within 15 minutes, I was
Yeah.
literally making the bed and singing to a song on the radio, whereas I was in bed minutes before that because I was so uncomfortable from the pain. So, and then I
Mhm.
was up making the bed singing the song on the radio, and I didn't even realize, and I just finished smoking a joint. And that was the
Right.
whole thing that started it for me. I was like, poof,
Right.
like mind blown.
Yeah. Well, I feel like too, and I feel like that speaks to the mental health too, right? Because you're in this really immense pain, which I can only imagine would affect your mental health and how you show up throughout the day. So, can you actually touch on that a little bit, how this has improved your mental health throughout the years too, and what changes you've seen there?
You know what? I'm really lucky, Carly. I've always been a really positive person, no matter what. And I find that even if I have, which I do, I have a pain in my face right now, but
Yeah.
even if I have a pain in my face, I can still smile. It
Right.
doesn't stop me from smiling. It doesn't stop me from fighting. It just
Right.
makes me want to fight more because I know I can get relief for this.
I'm kind of curious myself when it comes to the pain that you experience. I was doing some research on on the diagnoses you have, and based on the research, it's some of the most painful things that you can experience. So
And
how, like when you are having pain, like right now, how is it that how do you deal with that, and how do you keep it under control?
I just did Montel Williams recently, his talk show, his podcast. And
Yeah.
actually, Montel was such an angel because he again suffers from the same pain. So
Oh, I
he
didn't
was,
know.
go ahead, light up. If you need to, just go right ahead. I take psilocybin in capsules.
Okay.
I also drink it in tea, and
Mhm.
I eat it raw mushrooms after they've been in the tea. So
Okay.
I do. And then cannabis, the same thing. I eat it in gummies and chocolate and
Yeah.
everything. And
Right.
I smoke it. Oh, and
Right.
no oil, excuse me.
So I'm going to move on to my next question. As a former corrections officer and now being a public advocate, both of those are traditionally male-dominated fields. So what challenges have you faced as a woman in these spaces, and how did you navigate those challenges?
Excellent question, Carly. And I don't think people took me very seriously in the beginning because I wasn't just a woman. I was a woman in an electric wheelchair.
Hmm.
And I think people brushed me off at first because of that.
Yeah.
And then the more I spoke, the more they realized I was not a one trick pony and
Hmm.
that maybe what I had to say had some validity. So
Okay.
for me, I just kept going on that. I kept leaning on those particular things for me that I knew were strong, like strengths of mine, and that I could literally put out to the world. And again, I've been doing interviews. As I said, Carly, I've done interviews all around the world for over 30 years,
Hmm.
and I've never actually practiced anything. And I think if you're just real and they hear your story as it is, and again, you give it validity, then
Hmm.
that's what makes the story. So
Interesting.
again, I never really tried to do anything other than put the information out there and tell people again that sadly enough, as somebody who's suffering from this silly little pain, I need help. Right.
Right.
So I'm telling people everywhere that I need help.
So, doing all this advocacy work, what changes have you seen from a government perspective when it comes to medical marijuana and medical psilocybin use?
You know what? The Canadian government has actually stepped up. We actually helped the government legalize and regulate marijuana or cannabis, pardon me, in 2018. It became a legality, a legal issue here in the country, so that anybody above the age of 18 could smoke legally.
Okay.
So what we did was we lobbied the government for years for that. So those changes were good. The
Mm-hmm.
medical cannabis program, sadly enough, has actually diminished over the years.
Oh,
From
yeah.
when I was a patient years ago, I'm no longer in the medical cannabis program
Mm-hmm.
because the edible limit is only 10 milligrams per edible that I can purchase.
Oh,
And so
okay.
I need thousands of milligrams a day and I can't afford it.
Right.
So that puts me out of the program right there. But also the amount that I consume in smoking and oil and everything else, the government will not allow.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
in Colorado there's like when you go into a dispensary, they have it kind of separated where there's the normal like recreational users and then there's the medical side and I've never used the medical marijuana myself. But from
It's
what I've heard is that it's much stronger. Yeah.
I should say, yeah, it's just stronger cannabis. You're right. It's stronger cannabis. And it's mainly made for people like us, people like me who are suffering from these silly pain issues, right?
Right.
Because the lower grade or the lower, THC cannabis doesn't help us as much.
Right. Yeah, so like the ones in Colorado, I think when you get like one edible like bar or whatever you're getting, there's like 100 total in there. So like one piece might be 10. But with the medical cannabis side, I think it go which I the numbers might be off for me. But last I knew, I thought it went up to like 1,000 for each. So each little piece was a
I
hundred.
get, yeah.
Um, so I can't imagine like when it comes to a medical use, I can't imagine how much you would actually have to take if you're only allowed 10 at a time. That's crazy.
Again, I have growers and people across the country, bakers, etc., who make me things for free, and I've been very blessed. I've had free gummies and free chocolate, and I'm telling you, I don't know what I'd do without these people because Carly, again, I can't live with this silly pain in my face all the time, and I
Right.
don't want anybody else who actually has this to do with this either, to live with
Yeah.
this like this. There are answers out here. We know that now.
Hmm. Yeah, there are answers, and that's why I'm such an advocate for holistic health too. You could, all my friends, I talk about it all the time. I try to get them to go to my holistic doctor all the time. They don't all listen to me. I still talk about it anyways, though.
No, I also take a lot of vitamins and fatty acids and antioxidants. I've done that all my life, Carly.
Which
So
is
I'm a
great.
natural girl too. I
Heck
don't
yeah.
want the pills, but I don't have much choice, right?
Right.
So I take a lot of natural things instead. And again, they're all listed on my website. So I want people to know that again, if they go to my website at alisonmyrden.ca, they'll find all these things listed under my medicine. And it's important that people know these things, that
Mhm.
natural products do help. Cannabis,
Yes.
psilocybin, vitamins.
Yes, and I think that's a good point that that foundational nutrition and giving your body good things
Yes.
really helps with your health in the long term. And if you're lucky enough to not have a severe like medical diagnosis like yourself, yours are very painful, but somebody who has a generally averagely healthy body, I mean, that's still important too, right? Because that's the building basis for the rest of everything is the foods you're putting in your body, the vitamins that you're getting, the nutrients that you're fueling yourself with.
Your hair, look at your nails. You can tell
Yes.
how healthy you are.
Yes. Yeah. So on that note too, I will include a link to Allison's website for
Beautiful.
anybody in the show notes for anybody who wants to take a closer look. It's definitely worth a closer look. So those will be included in the show notes. And then we'll go over this at the end too. But Allison, where else can people reach you at? Just so I can make sure to add those to the show notes too.
I'm on social media. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on X. I'm on Blue Sky. I can't even think of everything. I think that's pretty much it right now that I'm on, that I'm active on.
Okay.
But certainly they can reach out to me at any of those places, as well as again my website. They can reach out to me everywhere. And they can
Okay.
just phone me at home. I don't even mind a phone call. I
Okay,
get
great.
all around the world regularly.
I won't put your personal phone number just in case. I'll help screen the calls for you, one. But I will put all those other places that people can reach you at so that they have a direct link.
It's probably better for me.
Okay, so With my next question, and I think this especially pertains to you. So, women often feel immense pressure to be strong, even when they're facing personal struggles. So, how have you cultivated the resilience that you have, and what advice do you have for when other women are going through those difficult times themselves?
I think it's just a matter of digging deep and finding the courage from within because none of us realizes how strong we are until we're faced with something that we need that strength for. So for me, literally, I've suffered from this pain in my face. My great grandfather had this 100 years ago, and they treated him with liquid gold injections, hot liquid
Oh my
gold
God,
injections in his face, Carly.
it's
And when
crazy.
I heard that, I thought, thank God I wasn't around 100 years ago because I
Yeah.
don't want that. I mean, I'm glad now that I'm finding for people that psilocybin and cannabis help just as much to give us relief. So I
Hmm.
want people to understand that. And that again is what my driving force has always been.
Right. That's like so crazy. Like I've seen some of the older like medical methodologies. I'm like, that looks so painful.
I couldn't imagine hot liquid gold injections in your face. I have it around my eye and my cheek a lot, my left cheek, my left eye, orbit of my left eye. And I couldn't even imagine having a hot injection close to there. I've had needles in my face. One, Carly, one time it
Mhm.
was bigger than my head,
Oh
the
my
needle.
God.
And they put it all around my face. It was a bendable needle, and they just
Ew.
did it on my face. It was so gross.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say you, but I was just like imagining that for myself because I am scared of needles. I'm like,
Sorry. Me too.
I would not be okay. Oh my God.
You trust me more now.
That is crazy.
Oh, God. Honey, I've
So,
been through it all.
yeah, for real. Like, I feel like you've experienced things that I could never even imagine experiencing. But I
God,
feel like it's really great that you've turned that struggle into something so powerful, and something so inspiring.
thank you, sweetheart. Hey, you know what? Again, growing up, I was captain of the cheerleading team, and I was always somebody who pushed everybody to do their best and be the best they could. And I never stopped trying to be the best I could. To this day, it's still going, Carly.
Good. And it should not stop either. I think that's a really good message because, I mean, yeah, things are, no matter what your story is, like there's going to be points where you struggle and it's going to look different for everybody to varying degrees, but you've made it through all your hardest days, right? So you're here, you're kicking, you're thriving, and so you owe it to yourself to kind of put in your all for yourself.
Exactly. And who can you count on? You.
Right. And Gary in your case.
Well, Gary's been with me 37 years, actually. He's been hanging out with me. We're not married, but he's been hanging out forever, I'll tell you. So he's an angel.
Heck yeah. Angel Gary, I'm here for it. So speaking about struggling, I feel like a lot of women struggle with speaking up and owning their voice, whether that's in personal relationships, in the workplace, or even in advocacy, like in your situation. So, what advice would you give to women who want to use their voice more boldly and more unapologetically?
You know what? I would say no matter how hard it is, do it. Because if it's difficult to do, it's more important that you do it. And if you can speak out and speak up at any place, at any time, and apparently, I mean, I shouldn't say apparently, but if the time is right, obviously, and the platform is there, use it. And, actually, what's the word I was looking for? Use the platform. But as I said, I would tell people, and I would tell women especially, reach within, reach within because you are stronger than you realize. And I don't think women, again, have been given the credit that we need to be given over the decades and centuries that we've been around on this earth fighting, centuries, thousands of years. So all the way back to Eve, holy jumping. But still, you know what? Women need to speak out and they need to reach in to find that voice deep within themselves to pull it out and share it with the world.
Yeah, I agree. And I think on that point, I feel like the scarier it is to use your voice, as you said, the more important it is to actually speak up, right?
Yes.
And I've learned that from experience, right? Because when you don't speak up, that's when things start to go poorly because you could have spoken up, whether it's for yourself or for somebody else or for your beliefs or your values. Like that is such an important thing to do, despite it being scary.
That's very true. And it's very difficult.
Hmm.
The harder you push yourself, the more accomplished you'll feel.
Hmm.
So
And
I think that's important because that does a number on your brain and it tells your brain that, wow, I didn't give up then. I'm not going to give up next time either.
yep. Yeah, and I think on that point too, the more that you do something, the easier it becomes. So the
Yeah.
more that you use your voice when it's uncomfortable, the more it actually becomes easy for you to stand up for those things.
It becomes more of a habit, Carly.
Yes,
You're
exactly.
more apt to do that. Very true.
Yes. So, women's health and autonomy over our bodies are ongoing conversations. Obviously, you have been immersed in this for quite a while, not just for women, but for people in general, is what you've been advocating for. But what have you learned from your own health journey about advocating for yourself in those medical spaces? And how can women ensure their voices are heard when it comes to their well being?
Well, again, I know for a fact that I found out a lot of things about cannabis as medicine for multiple sclerosis, but I
Hmm.
had a little bit of a head start because a company called GW Pharmaceuticals that was in the United Kingdom 30 years ago had it written on their website when the internet first came up. And I printed it out that day that actually there was a study when I posted under multiple sclerosis or looked under multiple sclerosis, it said that marijuana halts the progression of MS. So that again was my fuel to get going, Carly. And what I did was not only bring women into it, because women at the time I knew were battling the same disease that I have. So I
Hmm.
was telling them about it and I was trying to empower them to get strong and, find out more answers for themselves as well. But again, when I found out psilocybin and cannabis were part of the picture for me, I ended up speaking out more about that because I realized that I did an interview from Florida in a magazine, the Florida Sentinel, a newspaper, pardon me, years ago about something called Sativex, which was the first sublingual spray, under the tongue spray for cannabis that was made in the
Okay.
world. And so I was the first person in Canada to get it. And Bear said they would sponsor me all over the world if it worked for me. Well, it didn't work for me though, Carly,
Right.
because all I did was get sores in my cheek and under my tongue and in my mouth because I used so much of it.
Yeah.
So what people have to realize again, and now they're realizing, is that there are different types of pain and some are much more difficult to handle than others. So
Hmm.
again, that's where psilocybin came in for me. I realized I was using cannabis, but I wasn't quite getting what I needed all the time.
Hmm.
And so I added psilocybin. I did some homework and researched psilocybin and found out there's something in psilocybin. I'm a science brain. So I found out there's a compound in psilocybin called triptans, Trypans, triptans.
Hmm.
And those triptans are actually in every migraine medication in North America. But those
Interesting.
medications wouldn't work for me, but the psilocybin did. So that again gave me more fuel.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I mean, it's just a natural compound that the other medicines, and I'm not discounting traditional, like Western medicine, but I feel like that's a natural alternative for what that other medicine is trying to replicate.
Safer. It's safer though, Carly. There are no side effects with
Right.
most of these substances. And if there are, there's side effects that we can deal with. They're not
Right.
overwhelming, like nausea and things like that. I have nausea from so many of my pills, I couldn't even begin to tell you.
Hmm.
But as soon as I smoke cannabis, again, gone. The nausea is
Hmm.
gone completely.
Right.
So
Yeah, and that's another thing too. The side effects on like I just think of the commercials, the like drug commercials, right? Where it's like, oh, you have risk of death and stroke and heart disease and like whatever they say on it. I'm like, oh my God. Like that's so many risks.
I know I watch your commercials in the US. We don't do that in Canada, but I watch your commercials in the US and it scares me.
Oh, you don't have commercials like that in Canada?
No, we don't advertise medication like that in Canada at all. There are
Wow, what the heck?
nothing, no medication that I can even think of that's advertised like that.
Wow, that's crazy.
Nothing, no pills, nothing. No, I know,
I'm,
wild, eh? I watch your channels.
yeah, that's so crazy. What the heck? I'm not surprised though. I'm not surprised that we advertise for medications like that in the US. Okay, so I do have another question, more so about standing your ground and taking a stand. So women, I feel like, often face more scrutiny than men when they take a stand. And I know I'm generalizing with that statement, but I feel like it's a fair one to make. So, have you encountered gendered criticism in your work, and how have you handled it without letting it shake your confidence to move forward?
You know, when I first joined LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, it was all men and me. And I
Mhm.
think the only reason they listened to me after a while, or sorry, in the beginning, wasn't that because I was a woman and I was saying something that was important, but it was because I brought medicine to the issue of drugs. So
Right.
LEAP had never heard that before. They actually had one other woman from Texas who was, her name was Marnie, and she was a former Texas Ranger, and she had come on and joined LEAP as well. But literally, we were the only two talking about it. So, as I said, it was important to me to take that to Canada. And so I became LEAP's leading speaker in Canada as a woman for this issue because no other person would pick it up. Nobody would take it up with but me. So, and again, I felt I was protected. I had lawyers. I've had lawyers in my beside me for the last 35 years.
As you should.
Yeah. But yeah, my lawyers are really good. They're some of the top criminal attorneys in Canada, and I have a human rights lawyer right now who's doing just incredible. So lots going on.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's so interesting that there were the other woman that you worked with at the beginning was also a former, because Rangers are in law enforcement, right, in Texas.
I
So that
know
is
they are so.
so interesting.
I know. We were the only two women back then. It was 1994. And I remember thinking, wow, that was incredible that back then there were just two women. I remember thinking it was so overdue that there should be more of us.
Yeah.
And we've opened up the door. We've opened up the door, Carly, for sure.
Hmm. I agree. Would you say that there's more women involved now than there were back then?
Oh, most definitely.
Okay.
Most definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
That's great to hear. And honestly, I think I'm not surprised by that because I feel like women are like getting better and better and better at standing up for themselves and standing up for their rights. So it makes me happy to hear that that's the case for this situation as well.
Well, again, specifically, I can mention LinkedIn, one of the social forums I'm on. I actually have hooked up a lot of female officers on LinkedIn, which was really interesting. I was really pleased. I didn't know there were that many. I was coming across a lot of male officers, sergeants, etc. But when I started coming across the female ones, it was like, wow, I'm going to hook these up for sure.
Yeah.
You betcha, honey. I'm going to go to them and I'm going to educate them.
Yes.
I'm not going to wait for them to find me.
Yeah. No, I think that's so great. And I think that does just speak to like the chutzpah, the fire that you have behind the work that you do, I think that's why it's so inspiring, right? Because you believe in it so much and I mean, following you on LinkedIn, like you post about it all the time, which I love because I'm somebody who like I have to I can be better about like posting about things, because I just get stuck in my day to day, but I love that you're so in it and you're so driven by it.
You know what? It's my job. I hate to say that, but since I retired from corrections, I literally jumped into activism overnight. So I didn't want to just be sitting at home doing nothing. So I wanted to be busy. So I got out there and I started to protest constantly, which
Yeah.
again, I'm going to be doing again soon, Carly,
Oh,
because the government of Canada is not listening to me with my need for psilocybin at the amount that I have. So I'm going out on the street corners in my electric wheelchair with that big sign saying legalize and regulate all drugs.
I love it. When are you planning on doing
Better.
that? Is it going to be a
Oh,
big
I'll be,
group of people?
nope, just little me. And you
Love
know
it.
what? If anybody wants to join me, you're more than welcome. But I'm going to go out by myself like I did 100 years ago, and I'm going to start some trouble.
I love it. Oh my God. Well, if anybody wants to join Allison, I again will include those links
You
to so that you can reach out to her about that. But I love that. That's so great that you're continuing to do
always,
that.
always, always, always. Honey, again, this pain in my face drives me more than anything. It's actually probably the most uh, one particular driving force that I have is the pain in my face because it doesn't go away, Carly. It's there all the
Mhm.
time. So even when I think it's slowing down, it's not going to be that bad like I did earlier today. Now look,
Right.
right? I mean, I never know, right? So I just go with the flow, and it's called Tic-Dolaroo, the name of it or the
Okay.
nickname of it or something.
Okay.
TIC and then DOLLOURX. And I
Okay.
call it skipped my loo because mine moves all over my face 24 hours a day.
Oh my
So I'm
gosh.
never in the same spot for long. You know what? You gotta laugh, gotta smile, Carly.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's the only way to work through it, right? Because if you let
Yeah,
yourself get a little bit down, then that's going to make it so much worse.
for sure. Why would you want to do that? Like I said, psilocybin actually helps with mood too. So
Yep.
psilocybin lifts you up a lot more than you realize. And even microdosing psilocybin
Mhm.
can pull you out of a really severe funk.
So the microdosing, that's a very good point. The microdosing of the psilocybin, again, in Colorado, it's decriminalized, or at least in Denver, it's decriminalized the psilocybin. And there are a ton of benefits, and there's a lot of studies on the benefits, especially like the mental health benefits that microdosing can do. I think particularly, especially with like PTSD and depression and anxiety, conditions like that, it really helps.
Carly, can I just say something quickly? There
Yeah.
was a man in Canada years ago in 2017. I became the first legal pain patient for psilocybin in the world. I became the
Okay.
first
Awesome.
authorized one with the doctor's note and everything else. And this man, I wrote it on the internet, and this man named Bruce Tobin contacted me from the West Coast in British Columbia. And he
Hmm.
said, I'm dealing with end of life care patients right now. Can we not go together and try and get this, on the same page, et cetera? And I said, no, no, at the time that mental health was much more important.
Hmm.
Now I'm regretting that more than you know,
Hmm.
because we needed the attention to chronic pain for psilocybin, and we're
Hmm.
still not getting it. And there
Hmm.
are people again in the US who suffer from the same thing, cluster headaches and
Hmm.
cluster busters. Like I mean, all of these people like me who fight worldwide for our medicine, it just seems unfair, Carly.
Hmm.
Just unfair. And now the government in Canada has totally directed it toward mental health issues, like they're ignoring the rest of us. And they
Hmm.
know darn well that people like me are out here. It's very upsetting for people like me who've been fighting for this for that long. I mean, it's good for everybody else, and it's wonderful that they're finding out about these issues for mental health issues, most definitely.
Hmm.
And it's saving people from taking their lives.
Hmm.
So, Carly, again, it's tremendous what this has done. So,
Yeah. But I think both deserve a platform, right? As you're saying. So the mental health and the physical pain portion of it, the physical health portion of it, both of them deserve a platform. I wonder if Bruce, you said his name is Bruce Tobin. I wonder if he's still doing that work. Are you aware?
yes, he is apparently. Somebody just told me that the other day.
Okay.
So, yep. And apparently he must be very happy. I haven't talked to Bruce again since he phoned me that day.
Yeah.
But I told him to go ahead, that I thought mental health was more important. Again, I regret it now. Almost eight. Well, it is 8 years later almost. And,
Yeah.
and it'll be 8 years in April, I'll tell you.
Hmm. Well,
So,
the end of life care too. I never even thought about it in that context until this moment, but that would be such a great use for things like this because I mean, so my sister,
oh,
she and her boyfriend, I'll keep the story quick, but his dad had stomach cancer and they were taking care of him when he was in hospice. He was like in home hospice for the last couple days, and he was just getting completely drugged with morphine. Because it was really painful, right? So I'm just kind of wondering like what role psilocybin and medical cannabis could have played in that for him.
you betcha. Carly, again, they're used really profoundly as medicine here in Canada. And we have a program called the Special Access Program that allows us access to psilocybin as medicine. Again, I'm a troublemaker, Carly. I'm a big troublemaker. And I just want people to know again that that's about all drugs, like you said about LSD and everything else, because I've had those drugs. I've had LSD for the pain in my face, and bang, the pain was gone. I've had psilocybin. I've had cannabis. There isn't anything really that I haven't tried for the pain in my face. And I always go back to psilocybin and cannabis because A, they're more benign, and B, they're already as safe as everything else.
Hmm. Right. And I feel like too with like opioids, there's that risk of getting addicted to them really easily, right?
Yeah,
So cannabis and psilocybin, I'm an advocate for those because they are just such a natural solution.
most
And
definitely.
you can't really get like addicted to them in the same way that you get addicted to heroin because that's a really scary type of addiction that you can fall into. Um, so I feel like advocacy and the work that you do, especially when you're on the front end of it, can feel really isolating at times. Just making big changes like that can be really isolating. So, how has community, and maybe touch too on specifically your community with other women, how has that played a role in your journey?
Again, I actually have found many women from Jody Emery way back when, who is an advocate like me for cannabis in Canada. We were out marching with her husband at the time, Mark Emery, the Prince of Pot. We were at every protest, every march, everything that we did in our areas all the time. And I looked up to Jody. She's your age. And literally, I looked up to Jody for having the courage that she did then. And now I can speak of a woman named Sherry Bennett who came to me within the last year. And she not only got me on Montel Williams right away, but she decided that my voice was more important, that more people needed to hear it, and she was going to push it everywhere. So I love my women friends for doing that. I've never had a man say that to me. I've
Yeah.
never had a man say, Here, let me lift you up.
Yeah, that's one of the really special things about women, I feel like, is that women are so community centric and we are all about, for the most part, we are all about lifting each other up and helping each other reach success because I think it's just kind of that general understanding, one, of the struggle that women have had to go through together and all the struggles that we have faced. So when we have the opportunity to lift other women up with us, we understand that that doesn't take away from our success. Like your success, Allison, does not take away from my success, and us being successful together can only create magical things.
Carly, I will say one thing I've never ever done is say anything that I've done is by myself. I've always said, I have a little saying, together we will. And
Hmm.
that involves anybody and everybody around the world who's interested in helping out in this issue. And that's all I keep saying to people. But the women, like you said, Carly, are just unbelievable. The women, the way they lift us each other up and the way we lift each other up and the way we can talk to each other when nobody else can talk to us like that.
Hmm.
We are the women that we get the support. There's another woman, a nurse practitioner, Bridget Favreau. Bridget, I can't even think of her last name, Bridget, anyway. And Bridget is so amazing. She has written some beautiful things to me over the last little while about my work, Carly. And I'll tell you, that inspires me to want to do more and help more people.
Yeah, that's great. And I think just that part too, just having someone there to support you and to give you those good words makes such a difference because it can get a little bit hard. Even when you do have such a great attitude like yourself, it does get hard if you're just solely relying on yourself. And I think long term, it's just not feasible. As you said, together we will, right? So that's how changes are made together.
That's exactly it, honey. I've never done anything by myself ever. And again, Gary's been with me for 37 years, and we do a lot more together than most couples do because we don't have children. It's just the two of us all the time causing trouble.
Right.
Like I said earlier, Gary, when we go out, takes pictures of when I'm out in marches. Usually I'm at the front of marches
Yeah.
because I'm in an electric wheelchair, not for any other reason. But bottom line, again, when I'm at the front of the march, Gary likes to take pictures of all the people behind us, or
Aw.
beside us, I should say, in the march. And I call Gary my pot parazzi because of that, the paparazzi.
That's so
So again,
hilarious.
always there filming everything.
We love Gary.
We do, we do.
Oh, that is so cute. I think that, I mean, there is something to be said for having a partner like that that helps support you too. And I think that's something that men are really great at, is providing that support structure, and being there to carry things when they're too heavy for yourself and being that person that like helps you through your struggles. And I think you more than a lot of people can see that firsthand. Do you mind touching on that a little bit more?
Oh, not at all. Specifically, I think it's because Gary and I have no children and we have a lot of time to spend with each other. So Gary, again, tends to be really sensitive to the fact, that I've had this silly little pain in my face for so long. I've had it since basically I've known him. So it was just a few years after that that I got diagnosed with it. Then it went 24 hours a day. So he
Hmm.
knew already that he was getting into something. The night I got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, I'll never forget this. I came home from the hospital. Gary brought me home, set me up in bed, and said to me, I'll be right back. Well, I watched the clock, and I'm not kidding you. I must have cried straight for 5 hours because I thought he left me. He came
Oh,
back 5 hours or just over 5 hours later with every book he could find in the library on multiple sclerosis. He had been reading up on it, and he wanted us to read it together till the sun came up. So
oh
we did
my
just
gosh.
that. So the sun came up. We sat here with books all over the bed and read all about what MS is and how it affects, the person involved. And Gary wanted to know everything. And again, I was dealing with scientists and doctors because of my vitamins and antioxidants. I went all around the world looking for help there with Gary's help again.
Hmm.
So again, the two of us, I think Gary and I make a really good team, that way because we're always investigating everything. If there's something that comes up that pops up. I went cross-eyed recently and Gary was like, let me see. My eyes are like, sure enough, right like this, eh? I was like, what are you talking about?
Oh,
But
that
yeah,
is so cute. What a cute story. And that's
we've
what
been through
everybody
a lot,
wants, right?
honey. We've been through so much. That's why I love him so much.
Yeah, I can only imagine. So speaking on that too, I mean, I feel like in addition to the advocacy work, you've lived like kind of an untraditional lifestyle, right? So you and Gary aren't married, you guys don't have kids, which I feel like, especially for women, society pushes a lot of those expectations to have a family, to be a mom, to get married. And even like now that women are in the workplace to have this career, but to also be a mom and in their appearance, there's all these expectations. And you've obviously chosen a different path for yourself. So, how have you defined success for yourself? And what advice do you give to women who are wanting to go down a path that's different than what maybe their family or what society expects from them? So, like those women that don't want to get married, or those women that don't want to have kids, or whatever the situation is, what advice do you have for them?
You know what? I say stand your ground. You know better than anybody what you're capable of and what you're interested in doing. So if you don't want to have children, that's entirely your choice. So nobody should have any say in anything to do with it because it's yours and your partner's choice. That's the first thing. If you have a partner, if you don't, then it's still your choice.
Hmm.
Secondly, when women I get into those positions where they feel they can't move from being locked into a position that they're in, for instance, they feel that, there's whatever it is inescapable at the time. That's again when you reach deep and you go, I know there's something in there that'll help me get through this. And I know again and again, I'm a big believer in God, right? So I also believe in leaning on things like that. And I have angels in my life who have
Hmm.
been there since the day I was born, who have never let me down. And I truly have many funny stories about that too. So again, I think if you believe in yourself and you believe in God and you believe in, that there's a better world out there for everybody, you included, whoever
Hmm.
you are, then again, I think it can be achieved.
You're kind of like the picture child for that, right? Of just staying so true to yourself and what you want for your life. So everybody who's listening, if you need a partner in crime or if you're feeling a little bit alone in your situation, just know that there's other people out there too that are having the same things. So Allison is a really good resource for that. And Allison is just such a friendly person. She's really great just on a normal day. So I can say for sure that Allison would be a great resource for anybody who's struggling. Um, but I think that's really good advice for anybody that's struggling with any expectations that society or whoever else puts onto them.
Don't be so
Um,
hard on yourself. You know what? You're all you've got, right? So realize that again, you're pretty incredible. You're made because of for a reason, So again, and you're here for a reason too. And don't forget that. Keep yourself busy and keep yourself focused on why you're here,
yeah,
and what you can do to be better for society, to help
yeah,
society and help the world.
yeah, absolutely. You said just a second ago that you have some funny stories about how your angels showed up for you. Do you have any that you're willing to share off the top of your mind?
gosh. I remember years ago when I was in the hospital, it was terrible. I had lost the feeling from the waist down and I couldn't walk at all. And I was at a party that day actually, and I'd been at a party all weekend and playing volleyball. And I went to jump for the volleyball and my legs forgot to come with me. So I knew there was a problem, right? Anyway, so Gary took me to the hospital. He was with me then. Gary took me to the hospital, right then and there. They admitted me that day. Before I knew it, I was numb from the waist down and I couldn't walk at all. I had lost the
Wow.
feeling completely. So I was laying in the hospital bed, and all of a sudden I realized a few hours later that I had to go to the bathroom. And I thought, oh, I'll just get up and go. It was right beside me. And then I thought, oh, I can't get up. I can't walk. So I thought,
Oh
what am I
no.
going to do? So I started yanking on the cord for the nurse to come. And I was panicked. I was yanking on the cord over and over. And all of a sudden, this nurse comes flying into my room and slides across the floor. And she goes, Allison. And I looked at her, I go, Tanya? She goes, yeah, it was a nurse I had met at a party that I was at the year before,
No way.
one time only. So she says to me, oh, I heard what's going on. What do you need? And I said, I need to get to the bathroom bad. She brought me a wheelchair and got me to the bathroom just in time. And I swear she was one of my angels and still is today because I've never seen her to this day since.
Wow. That's so funny too. I love like kind of full circle moments like that or when the paths cross, that invisible string crosses again. I love that.
Isn't that beautiful?
It
That
is,
just
yes.
it's a little joke from the heavens.
Like we got you, don't worry.
Exactly.
So I do have one last question for you to wrap things up. Reflecting back on your life and your experiences, your extensive media appearances, all of your public speaking engagements, um, and really just your life in general, what achievements are you most proud of?
Nah, I think more than anything, I'm proud of the fact that now cannabis is known around the world as medicine because of people like us speaking out, and that psilocybin also is being looked at more as a medical tool than it ever was. So I think those are probably my two biggest accomplishments. And I'm very, very happy about both because that's what I set out to do over 30 years ago. You know what? It's because of the world and people like you, my friend. You're the reason that it's got on as much as it has. And I could not thank you ever enough.
Oh, thank you, Allison. Thank you so much for coming on. It was so great to speak with you. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And thank you so much for being an advocate for this for so long. Again, everybody, if you want to connect with Allison, you can learn more. Again, as she said, there's all those supplements that she takes on her website at alisonmyrden.ca. So that's
It's
A-L.
Murden like burden too, but I'm no trouble at all, Carly. It's Murden like burden,
Oh,
but I'm no
sorry, I've been
trouble at
pronouncing it
all.
wrong. I'm so sorry.
I
It's
meant to say that earlier.
my
The
mistake.
why.
Allison Myrden.
It's
um,
the
dot
why.
ca. Oh my gosh, that's so embarrassing. So I'll have that link there, but it's ALISONMYRDEN dot ca. You can also find her on LinkedIn, Facebook, X, and Blue Sky.
Yes, ma'am. I'm everywhere.
Thank you so much, Allison. Have a great day.
Thank you, Carly. Have a great day. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you liked what you heard, then go ahead and subscribe so you get updates with us every week. You can also follow us on Instagram at KRC Coaching. If you're interested in working one-on-one, then go ahead and visit our website, krccoaching.com, to book your first 30-minute session for free. All right, thanks so much, you guys. Love you. Bye.